Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We hope you're keeping very, very safe and well. Thank you so much for joining us for a midweek edition, where, as you guys know by now, no actual midweek game to review, but we keep on rolling on the Last Word on Spurs. If you're listening to the show for the first time, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're on Audio Boom, we're across a range of different audio platforms. We're, of course, on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And also, we're delighted to be live on YouTube. I know it's tough tonight. You've got Champions League, or you've got Last One on Spurs. Surely there's only one outcome, right? I'm delighted to be joined by three great guests, one debutant as well on the Last Word on Spurs. Back alongside me, we're trying to balance it in between his fitness regime. We've got the brilliant Jamie Brown over at the Daily Hotspur. Jay, lovely to be back on. How are you?
I'm all good, thank you, Ricky. Yeah, we were speaking off air about kind of Spurs playing once every week. I mean, it's especially after that Brentford game and such a disappointing result. It's weird. I think we're looking forward to having one game a week, but it kind of leaves us having to wait for the next one after such a depressing performance. But no, it's again Spurs always giving us something to talk about when they're not playing, and of course with all the Conte stuff, and obviously plenty of stuff to discuss tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And delighted to also be joined by two also great guests alongside us. First up, listen, we had him on during the season as well. You'll be familiar face by now. Hopefully, we've got the presenter, Capital, of course. Rob Howard joins us. Rob, how are you?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you, mate. Yeah, I was, as we were saying, like thinking, it should be a nice little quiet midweek build up, preview Leicester, and then obviously Conte wants to leave apparently, and then he doesn't want to leave, and then I'm very well, thank you.
Absolutely. Listen, lovely to have you on, Rob. I know we've got a busy hour in store with Spurs. Never ever a walk in the park, is it really? There's always feels a crisis round the corner. And we always have a crisis. That always means a debutant makes their appearance on the Last One on Spurs. So delighted to finally welcome her to the show. We've got Hannah Barlow joining us. Hannah, how are you?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, good to see you all and be in such esteemed company. I'm just a super fan, so that's what I'll go by. But yeah, great to be on the show. Thanks for having me, Ricky.
Our absolute pleasure. Our absolute pleasure. Now, we must let everybody know, just so there's, just some clarity on this. Hannah is 8 months pregnant. So if we're wondering why there might be certain times Hannah's moving about in a certain way, if that might happen, that might be the reason. But we're also blessed to be welcoming another Spurs fan into the world. Although I'm not sure, Hannah, for that little one, whether he or she will be looking forward to being a Spurs fan. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I know. Well, it's a girl. And I say, when everyone asks, well, when's your baby due? I say my Spurs fan is due on the 1st of June. Long suffering, probably, but you never know.
Oh dear. Well, let's hope it's the start of much trophy-laden success to come for Spurs.
Yeah,
Let's hope
exactly.
so. Let's hope so. Guys,
Exactly.
never a quiet week for Spurs, is it? Never a quiet week. You always think when there's no midweek games, you can kind of drift on by and just look ahead to the next game. But such is the nature with Spurs that there always seems to be stuff going on in and around the football club. But before we get on to what's happened so far this week, just want to touch upon how everybody's feeling about the current form of the club. Jay, let's start with you. I mean, listen, the draw at Brentford, it feels like a long time ago now, but it really wasn't. Only a few days ago. It's a disappointing draw, many would say, kind of in isolation, although Brentford have been on really good form recently. I think they've won 6 of the last 8, to be honest with you. But I think it's just the nature of Spurs' performance at the moment that are really, really frustrating on the eye. Again, no shots on target. Spurs now find themselves 5th in the Premier League table, 2 points, of course, behind Arsenal. Took full advantage of the weekend by beating Manchester United. 5 games left to play. How do you find this battle forming now for the top 4 finish?
Yeah, look, I think the Brentford result, I do think it was a good result. Maybe not in terms of like kind of where, in the race for the top 4 and kind of where we are in terms of the season. But I think going to a team like Brentford, they're the second, going into that match, they were the second most informed team in the league. So, they were showing, certainly it was always going to be a difficult game. I think Liverpool went there earlier this season and also got a draw as well. So I think it was a very difficult place to go. And I think in the end, a point is a good result for us. Obviously, kind of in the context of the race to the top 4, maybe it's not the best point. And had it become earlier on in the season, I think we'd have all been a lot more pleased with it. But yeah, I think it was kind of the nature of the performance that was quite disappointing and pretty concerning. I think we're a team that clearly, we do need that plan B. We are lacking of that plan B. I think when you look at the bench, that's the most concerning thing. There's kind of no real options to go and change it. And yeah, I think we clearly do desperately need that plan B. That's something that has to happen. But it's very difficult to kind of see how that goes about, how you find that plan B. But yeah, that for me is something that hopefully Conte is working on, in trying to find different ways to play. Because when we play these teams that, you know, causes a bit of frustration and are able to stop Harry Kane from playing and stop our front line, then we really seem to struggle. And, you know, that's when we need to have, you know, be able to switch to something different. Because, you know, what we did is we brought Davinson Sanchez on, and, you know, the changes that we made just weren't quite the right changes. So hopefully this week he's seen that it didn't work with Brighton, didn't change anything with Brentford, and maybe he now sees that, you know, maybe something new is needed. So you know, hopefully now he's kind of realised that we do need to try something new. And yeah, let's see what happens in the next game if we do make some changes, because I think at the moment we kind of maybe have been sussed out a little bit.
No, I agree. I think many probably know that what our 11 is going to likely be. I feel everybody knows a predictable system about how we're going to set up, which I think at the moment is playing into a lot of the opposition team's hands. I mean, Rob, coming over to you, as I kind of already referred to, you know, Spurs, they went 9 goals in 2 games against Newcastle and Villa. And that was then followed up by 2 games where Spurs have failed to have a single shot on target. Do you get the feeling, as I've said there, teams are almost starting to work out the way Spurs are playing?
Yeah, I think a little bit, but I guess that's kind of natural. Like any, you know, there's so much research and analysis and stuff behind the scenes these days that, you know, with all the sort of watching they do of, like, you know, the patterns and that kind of thing. And also it probably doesn't help as well that Conte, famously, everyone, like, you go Conte and you go patterns, he's all about the patterns. So you've already got a bit of a head start if you just get the video team guys to just go and like look and be like, oh, okay, well, this is a move they like. I do think as well, I think those 2 fixtures in particular were probably, for like a system manager like Conte, probably the worst kind of teams really to play, because they're really quite similar as well. You've got Frank and Potter, who are both really good tactically, really good at setting up a system, and they're also that kind of like mid-level team who will change their tactics specifically to play in opposition. It's not like Liverpool, Man City, even Arsenal, someone like that who'll go, no, we play our way and we win. They'll literally make a game plan for you. And I think that's exactly what they did. And I actually think they're probably our trickiest kind of strata team to play with Conte, because it's not like a big team like City or Liverpool who play their way and leave space at the back. And it's not like a sort of like Norwich or someone who I think will try and stop us, but we can just blow them away. And I think they did. I think that's part of it as well. They did it really, really well. I kind of saw it coming a little bit. That was the one thing I was disappointed with Brentford was the substitutions. I thought were a bit. I think after 55 minutes, you could kind of see where this was going, and you kind of thought maybe we should do something a bit quicker. But when I think that was maybe one of the most uninspiring substitutions I've ever seen, where it was like, right, we need to do something, and you look up and Sanchez is there, and you're like, oh, right, okay, is he going to be our Ericsson, and he's going to come on and pick some passes? But yeah, I don't know. It just felt like one of those games. You know, like the Kane bicycle kick at the end. It just felt like it needed that to hit the post, go in, and go, oh, got away with one there. And it just didn't quite happen, did it?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it just feels at the moment, coming over to you, Hannah, that, you know, the hopes of securing Champions League football, although they're still alive, it feels the last couple of games have been a real massive blow to the confidence of the players, confidence of the squad. Dare I say, even the manager. I know it's probably the first time we've seen Conte really being questioned and scrutinised over the past 2 games in terms of the way Spurs are tactically setting up, the in-game management as well. I mean, he has kept largely the same starting lineup for the large chunk of Spurs' matches, including the last 2 games. Do you think Conte needs to show some flexibility going forward now with the games Spurs have got coming up?
Yeah, I do actually. And I think particularly when you're setting up against Brighton and Brentford, you want to show that attacking confidence. So having 3 at the back and then the 2, you know, defensive wingers, I'd actually think about, instead of Davies, could we have had Moura? Could we have had an extra midfielder? Because our midfielders are also quite defensive, Højbjerg and Bentancur. So I think it's sending the wrong message. Fine, show up to Man City, show up to Liverpool in that format. But when you're playing against Brighton and Brentford, I want to see a bit more attacking furore, and I think flexibility for sure. I do think Conte's clever in how he plays it. And I wonder, because there was a period, wasn't there, where he was playing Doherty on the left, and he's got sort of no left foot. And I do sometimes wonder if he sticks to things to make a point to Levy. But that's my kind of psychological thriller there, because clearly we've got to strengthen the squad, and he might be sending that message to Levy ahead of the summer.
It's interesting you say that, Hannah, because you do feel with Conte, especially in the early part of the season, when he kept on persisting with Matt Doherty on the opposite side of what he'd be used to, you wonder if he was trying to then maybe make a signal of intention to the board. But, with the situation Spurs find themselves in, I've got to say, I think it's been a massive blow not having Doherty, of course, not having Oliver Skipp now for the rest of the season. That will come on to. Jay, listen, I think Conte so far, he's been... rightly so, fairly lauded for where he's taken Spurs to and from. Of course, we can't forget when he came through the door, Spurs were 9th in the Premier League. I think at that point we were 5 to 6 points off the top 4. So we weren't massively off it, but the way Spurs were playing, we can't forget he walked into the job with Spurs not having a single shot on target, a really fragmented squad, some would argue. We've definitely seen, of course, over the last few months, a real rhythm to the way Spurs are playing. And it's only been over the last couple of games that we've seen almost, again, Spurs revert back to type like the Nuno era, if we're going to say that. So do you back Conte that, with Spurs now 5 games left to play, that we will rediscover our goal-scoring touch?
It's interesting. I wonder whether I think he does need to maybe look at making different changes, because I think the big thing at the moment is the fullbacks or the wing-backs. I think that's such an important part of Conte's system, and they're just so weak at the moment. You look at the midfield as well, there's no real creativity in there. So the creativity's got to come from the wing backs. And when you're looking at Emerson Royale and Sergio Reguilon or Ryan Sessegnon as the 2 wing backs, unfortunately, they're just not going to be good enough. I just think at the moment, there's kind of too many, areas in that squad that aren't kind of built for an Antonio Conte system. So, maybe he needs to kind of look at changing up the system in terms of maybe going for a 4-back or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's really disappointing. I think that at the moment, the wing backs are just killing us, unfortunately. Just not enough quality in those areas. That, for me, is kind of the biggest worry at the moment. And as I keep saying, about the plan B, I think that's also a big disappointment. We speak about the subs being so uninspiring. I mean, look at Liverpool. Of course, they needed to make a change, during the match, because they couldn't get past Everton. They, able to bring on a couple of players, and the game completely swings in their favour. And unfortunately for Spurs, we just don't have those kind of options to really change it up at the moment. I think we're kind of in that early stages as well with Conte, in terms of he hasn't really had the opportunity to kind of really build that squad. And hopefully in the summer, he is backed, and we go and getting the players that are going to be able to make his system a lot stronger. Because at the moment, having just one transfer window, you're never really going to see a consistent, stable side, because it's not a squad that's kind of built for an Antonio Conte team. As I said, no wing backs. Maybe a creative midfielder to come in at occasions, and we can swap to a 3-5-2 or something, or maybe play a 4-back and have more midfielders. But yeah, I just think at the moment we're a side that kind of are deficient in Antonio Conte players, and hopefully in the summer we can kind of rectify that. But at the moment, I just think because we're missing too many players that are key to a Conte system, I think that's kind of why we're seeing so many inconsistencies at the moment.
Rob, coming on to you. Listen, it's as I've said this week, from I think Tuesday onwards, we've seen reports linking Conte with PSG, almost at a time when you don't need this to happen. Spurs are in a situation where we've got 5 incredibly massive games for the football club, where between Tottenham and Arsenal, whoever...
Oh, mid-question as well.
Oh, we lost Ricky.
What's the end of the question going to be?
Who's going to make up the question?
It was about Conte, wasn't it? Shall I have a go at answering the question? So the Conte stuff. The Conte stuff is weird, because I might be reading it wrong, but am I right in saying that the thing that this French outlet got hold of was supposedly that PSG haven't actually contacted Conte, but his demands that he'd asked for have been leaked? Is that right, Jamie? You probably know a bit more about it than I do.
It was from RMC RMC Sport, the French outlet, which I think was strange in a way, because usually you'd think that something like that would come from maybe one of Conte's Italian sources. And I think as well, what was it? Yeah, I just think it was a strange one. I think they were kind of denying that they'd been in direct contact with Conte. I think Conte and his entourage have kind of done an interview today with one of the Italian media saying that they were denying that there was any sort of interest. But for me, the way that I kind of looked at that whole situation is in football, there's never really any loyalty, and of course, you go into the summer and maybe things don't go right for Spurs, and we're not willing to go back Antonio Conte. Or something doesn't happen. He's then maybe in the background. His people are just lining up something else in case something doesn't go right with Spurs.
Yeah.
I don't think that necessarily means that he wants to leave Spurs. I think it's something. The club could let him down, or a situation could arise where it's not going to work at Spurs.
Yeah.
So I think it's only right that maybe behind the scenes, his people are kind of working on something new like that. But yes, it's very stressful seeing all those links, and I kind of have calmed down. I've definitely calmed down a little bit over it, but it was stressful to see.
I think it was your tweet actually, Jamie, that made me panic, because there were those ones from like the really low tier French things, and I was like, don't worry about this. And then I think it was you tweeted. I have to tweet this one. It's quite a good source.
Unfortunately, you should be worried.
Yeah.
It was a weird one, because I know obviously because at the moment we're obviously in I think as fans we all play our role in terms of you've got to create a good atmosphere at the club and spreading those sort of stories. And I kind of, to start off with, I didn't really want to say anything, but RMC are quite a good reputable source in France, so I was like, well, they're starting to say it. We've obviously heard from other sources as well, so I was panicking a little bit. I was on the Laugh and Spurs WhatsApp group, and I was like, oh no, I'm getting a little bit worried now. So I didn't want to put those stories out there, especially at the timing as well, because with 5 games left, and yes, it was just I did have to admit I did kind of hit the panic button a little bit, but I've calmed down now. I've definitely calmed down a little bit now.
I definitely don't think he'll go. I think that the issue is it plays into the narrative that the commentary and also us as fans feel about Tottenham quite a lot, which is we're so close and then we just miss it out. We've got this amazing manager and now we're doubting it, he's going to go, etc., etc. So I kind of think it's a story that wants to be written, but actually I can't see him going. And I mean, the choice to go to, it's not just about leaving Spurs. It would be, right, does he want to go to PSG? And they're sort of organised, they're firing their way to their objective, right? Whereas at Spurs, I think what Levy needs to put on the table is, here's the long-term plan, here's the package for the summer. But yeah, I mean, you guys probably have more background intel than me, but you've got to hope that there's promise of that already in the pipeline.
Well, this is the interesting thing, isn't it? And forgive me there, I did do an Ndombele and storm off after 15 minutes, but I am back. I missed Jay's opening line there. And Jay, I'll be honest with you, you did worry us earlier in the week when you said that, this source is fairly credible and it is something to be aware of. Again, the thing is, I know Conte now, his entourage have come out today and we're recording on Wednesday and vehemently denied there's been any negotiations, which you would expect them to do because there is a manager in charge there still, with Maurizio Pochettino. So it would be wholly unprofessional to have any sorts of negotiations going on with Pochettino there. But we have to be real here. There's intermediaries that talk, there's agents that talk. These stories, they don't just start from nowhere. So I think for Spurs, in a way, and Conte, it actually, I think, suits him to have that link to PSG because it gives him the opportunity to really drive onto the ball that, look, I am wanted elsewhere and I want to be backed. But I just want to know, really, from your perspective, Jay, before I go back round, I mean, because I obviously have missed this, do you feel this is a link to be worried about? Because Conte really, if you're looking for a manager that's going to go and win you a Champions League, Conte really isn't that kind of manager. If you look at what he's, won in his time, I mean, you'd say Europe is where he's really struggled to really make that impact. He's suffered in the Champions League, we're being honest with you, today.
Yeah, well, I think as well, getting through knockout football and getting through league football, I think it's two kind of different skills. We're seeing with Unai Emery at the moment, where he's had so much success in the Europa League. Of course, he's playing in the Champions League semi-final this evening. But in the league, his Villarreal team are only 7th. So I think certain managers can have that know-how of setting up for one-off matches and knockout football, and some managers are able to set up their team for 36 matches and be able to be consistent. And with Conte, it just seems to be the case. He's a fantastic league-winning manager, and as you mentioned, you see his record in European football. It's pretty poor, actually. I think the furthest he's got in the competition is in the quarterfinals. I think when he was at Inter Milan, he got the furthest he's ever got in Europe. They got to a final of the Europa League, and of course, I think they lost it. So his record in knockout football maybe doesn't suit PSG, and he's a manager that seems to be just fixated on winning league titles, and that's not something PSG need. I think they're a side that wants to win the Champions League. He's a side that wants to win the league. He's a manager that wants to win the league. So I just don't think they're the right fit. But I was saying with this link, I just feel as though in the summer, there's obviously going to be big talks between Daniel Levy, Paratici, and Conte about what the plans are going to be, about, are they going to go and back him? And I just feel as though, if those plans were to not go right, or Spurs weren't to get into the Champions League, and that affects things in terms of will they go and back him, I just think in the background, his people probably, maybe lining something or trying to line something up in case things don't go right at Spurs. I don't think that means that Conte doesn't want to be at Spurs. I think if Spurs were to back him, and PSG, Spurs were to say to him, "We'll back you," and PSG were to offer him the job, I think he'll actually stay at Spurs. And I think that if he can, he's done all the hard work at Spurs. I think that's the main thing. It really feels like he's done pretty much all the groundwork. He's put, he's setting in place foundations. Yes, I mentioned, that there's a lot of inconsistencies, but I think because we're so short of being an Antonio Conte side at the moment. So, he set the foundations at the moment. He's done all the hard work. So I think if it was to come to it and Spurs would say, we'll go and get you 2 wing backs, we'll get you a creative midfielder, we'll go and boost the squad a bit more. But PSG were to come in and say, okay, actually, we weren't able to get down, we'll offer you the job. I still think Conte would stay at Spurs because as I said, he's done all the hard work. And I just don't think Conte is the right fit for PSG, as we mentioned. His record in Europe is pretty poor. I don't think he was great in terms. I think he did okay with Italy in terms of the Euros, but yeah, just knockout football just doesn't seem to have suited him. And do you know what I know a lot of criticism as well surrounding Daniel Levy and whether he'd back him, but for me, the last season where we had a real proper transfer window, of course, that was during a pandemic, and of course, all the costs that you have to factor in with those windows. It was the 2019 window, and of course, in that year, we spent nearly £150 million. Obviously, we spent it completely wrong, but I think, I think the money will be there, and I do believe they will go and back him now that, everything's kind of back to somewhat, but pretty much back to normal now. I do think they're going back him, and you've got to say, I mean, you look at what we did in January. Hopefully, our recruitment's getting a lot better as well. And Daniel Levy will look at what they've done in January with Kulusevski and Bentancur. Hopefully he'll trust these two, Paratici and Conte, to go and get it right. And I am backing them to go and actually to go and back Conte in the summer.
Yeah, no, I do agree. And the thing for me is, I've said this before, Rob, that winning at Tottenham in comparison to winning at PSG, even if you win the Champions League, I think you get far more credit by winning at Spurs because of the nature of just how poor Spurs have been as a club when it comes to trophies over the last 20 years. We're being honest, one trophy in 20 years. Spurs as a club, for me, you've got to try and change the mentality, not just of a team, of a squad, of a club, of a board. We're not a club that's been used to winning. And that's why I think, I agree with Jamie that if Spurs back Conte, this is here the biggest project, to win with Tottenham. French League, if I'm being honest with you, Liga, I mean, you're going there to do one thing. Well, you're going there to do one thing. You're going there just to win the Champions League. And, we've seen, Guardiola, look how tough he's found the Champions League to try and win it. Klopp, there's been success there. I mean, but if we're honest, you're looking for one trophy. That's so hard to get to. And I've said, I think for Conte, it's all about really what comes down to the summer. We know there's going to be a massive board meeting that's going to be held between Paratici, between Conte, between Levy. They'll come to a conclusive decision as to whether they can back the manager in terms of what he wants. But you would think, Rob, that Spurs weren't stupid. Surely when they engaged with Conte at the very start of this process, surely they would know what they're getting themselves into. And I think Tottenham, as Ali Gold has said, friend of the show, Tottenham are going to have to change for Antonio Conte. There's no way Antonio Conte will change for Tottenham. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But I do think they're doing that as well. Like, if you actually look at what we've done so far, I think we've basically kind of given him the keys to the car a little bit, far more than he'd get at PSG. And you know, as Jamie was saying, why he's done the hard work now. He's come in. You know, you look at January. We cleared out Dele Alli, who Levy. How many times has he said that we're not selling him? He nearly went last year, didn't he, to PSG? Ironically, and then like Ndombele, who's the biggest, and they just loaned them out, and you kind of think it doesn't really get bigger, kind of saying, okay, look, you've looked at these, you said they're not good enough, and we'll farm them out in January. We won't even get a transfer fee. I think Dele Alli, I know he's got all those clauses that he's, you know, they're kind of like the clauses I put in to trick the computer on Football Manager because I know they're never going to hit them. But he was off on a free, wasn't he? And so you kind of think, I think Conte knows what he's doing. This is the other thing about Conte. He reminds me very much of, do you know someone who'll get in a relationship and then they will forget to delete their Tinder account? So every now and again they can kind of log on and go, I've still got it.
I like that.
He just kind of enjoys it. And, you know, I'm not saying I'm that sort of person because my wife is next door.
Sounds like you're quite familiar with that, Rob.
You know. And it's a fine thing to do, whether you're me or Antonio Conte. But I think he kind of likes it, and it really suits him as well. It suits him to say, okay, well, look, you know, I've got this other interest, so you better back me or I'll go. And the other thing about him not really fitting him is the great thing about the PSG job. If he doesn't take it now, it'll probably come up again, you know, in a year.
Well, this is the thing, is that, I mean, you're guaranteed at least 18 months that job will come back up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So why kind of do it now? Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it adds up.
Well, also, I must add, is PSG as a club, you know, if you're a manager that wants, you know, and essentially come over to you, Hannah, you know, some element of major control, PSG probably is not the club for you, the way they operate. You know, you're just not going to get that element of control. But it just, coming away from PSG for a second, it just feels really, really infuriating that Spurs have got 5 massive games to come. Arsenal seem vehemently behind their manager, no matter, you know, from a fan's perspective, whether they like him or not. They are fully 100% committed to Arteta. And we've got Spurs this week that there's rumours coming out about the manager's future. It feels so unnecessary, doesn't it? You know, at this time in the season where we should be 100% hell-bent focused on 5 massive games to come for the football club that could ultimately determine whether the club are going to end up in the Champions League or a lower tier European competition.
Yeah, totally agree. But I just say to us as fans, let's stay focused, because I think it's kind of what I said earlier about it's the story that people want to write about Spurs. You know, the manager's wobbling. We should be getting top 4, but we won't. So it's the age old kind of Spursy. So I think it's just got to press on with it, really, and you hope the players aren't too affected. And I'm sure there's a lot of kind of comms and management of that internally. But I'd say, it is unhelpful. But frankly, I think Conte's staying. I think it's a load of rubbish.
Well, I think for the benefit of the fact, listen, we've had some kind of, you know, confirmation today from Conte's entourage that the matter's closed. Hopefully that will be the end of it. I think for those wanting us to go into the Pochettino debate, I think at the moment it's not really worthwhile and conducive, bearing in mind Poch is still in charge at PSG. And I think, listen, from my perspective, I want to win with Conte. I think if you look at the two managers, as though maybe one day it would be nice to see Poch coming back in some element, you know, if he was to go and win multiple trophies. If you ask me now in terms of who I want between Conte and Pochettino, you know, Conte is the far superior manager, in my opinion. I'll be hoping Spurs do everything in their power to absolutely back him. I can see, Jay, you also nodding to that. I know you was a massive Pochettino fan, but are you of the same opinion that you want to see Conte ultimately backed throughout this summer, rather than looking to go back to Pochettino?
I still think with Pochettino as well, I think he's still got a lot to learn. I mean, I just remember the game against Juventus when we got knocked out by Paulo Dybala, and I thought, you know, Pochettino was this brilliant manager, but you saw Allegri, you know, he just kind of knew, even though Juventus team weren't as good as Spurs, you know, just tactically, he just knew how to kind of win that match. And I think that's what Poch was still missing. And I think with Antonio Conte, I think he's just, you know, he's got all that experience. He knows how to win football matches. He knows how to kind of, you know, set up a team to kind of, you know, really succeed. And I think the big thing as well with Conte, you look at kind of when he's taken over clubs, they've kind of been in a real mess. I mean, you look when he took over Chelsea, I think they just finished 10th the season before that. And then the next season, they win the league title. With Inter Milan, they'd gone 10 years without winning the Italian title. I think 2 years after he arrived at the club, they got to a Europa League final, and then of course the following year they went and won the league title with Juventus. I think they'd just come up from Serie B, and the following year they became Serie A champions. So he's a guy who just knows how to build up teams pretty quickly. And you've just got to hopefully go and back him and get the right players. I mean, as I said, we've got so many areas that squad that are missing Conte players, and I think if we are able to go back in, because I mean, you look at kind of the job that he's done so far already. I mean, you said he came in when we were ninth. Yes, we were quite close to the top four, but Spurs, we collected the third most points since his arrival. We're only just behind Liverpool and Manchester City in points collected. So it just shows you the job that he's, the incredible job that he's done. And as I said, I kind of feel as though there are going to be lots of inconsistencies because there are so many areas of weakness in this squad. So I think it's, just seeing some of the performances that we produced, I think it's really encouraging signs. And as I said, I'm looking forward to next season. I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to do in the summer, because I just think there's been so many promising signs of what's to come under Conte. And I think it's, it's just seeing how we finish the season as well. And hopefully we're in a position where we've produced enough positive signs for Conte to look at it and think, do you know what, next year I think we can add these sort of players, then we'll be in a really good position to go and really challenge for trophies next season. So, Conte, 100% the man for me. For Spurs.
Rob, same question to you. If you're offered the two in the summer, you still fully backing Conte here out of the two of the managers?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think you've got to. And I think, as Jamie was saying, I mean, this may seem a very unusual kind of like sort of cross-section parallel to draw. But I watched the... there's a Crystal Palace documentary on Amazon Prime, and they talk about when they get promoted, and Holloway goes there, and he's the one who gets them through the playoffs, and he's not very good in the run-up, and they scrape into the playoffs. And then all the players say, we won it because of Holloway, because he'd been to the playoffs before and he knew everything and he just knew what to do. And he was like, we were so unnervous because he'd been there and done that. And he told us, like, right, even on the day, like, this is what's going to happen. The nerves will kick in here. Don't worry about it. And they said, literally, that's what carried it over the line. And exactly as Jamie is saying, like with Poch, he hasn't quite been there and done that with in a super high kind of pressure situation, whereas Conte has gone on these league runs. He has turned teams around. He has gone in and completely put this new system in. And I think as well with Chelsea as well, they had that bit at the start of that season where I don't think it quite worked for like the first 8 games.
I think I remember Lee McQueen tweeting about it. So I think they just lost quite heavily to Arsenal at the Emirates, and then
that's right, yeah,
back, and then completely changed. They went on and won the league. So you're right.
And also I just feel like it's really there. That's why they've kind of got to back him. I think even Levy's a really clever man, and you just kind of look at the squad and you kind of go, put a bit of money in. We're kind of out of the pandemic economy a little bit. And then also you look at like Kane and Son, they're kind of in their prime. They're not going to be around for a lot longer. You can't really afford to go, oh, we'll have another cycle and bring some young players in. It's kind of good to go now. Like it kind of has to happen now. And I think Conte's the guy to do that. If you want a manager to give you a one brilliant season, I can't think of many better. Like even like Guardiola and Klopp are more come in, get a system going, and take a while. Whereas I could see next year being amazing under Conte, and I could see it'd be great with Poch as well. But I think he's maybe if this doesn't work and he's around, then you kind of think about it. But yeah, it's got to be Conte.
Do you agree, Hannah, for you? I mean,
definitely 3 out of 3. Yeah. And look, we've got to remember, is there a choice? Because Nuno fired him, Mourinho fired him. We're on the 3rd now, so it's also is there really a choice here to change this up again? Because
I agree, yeah.
Fans, it's not what we want. Conte has been brought in to deliver. He's a great manager. And it's time to sort of back him and kick on, I think.
Totally agree. I mean, maybe I'll just keep on reiterating the point that to PSG, Conte's won 3 of his past 15 Champions League matches. Maybe that kind of gives it absolutely crystal clear.
There is an irony. There's an irony, isn't it? We're trying to get 4th to keep Conte so we can play the Champions League, which he's notoriously terrible at.
3 of the 15 games. What's there to worry about? Maybe it's all about the Europa Cup. Maybe it is all about the Europa League. Who knows? Let's hope it isn't. God, let's hope it isn't. But guys, what we will do is we will go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. For our watching audience on YouTube, there's nearly 200 to 300 of you watching us live. So thank you so much for all of your support on the Champions League night. As always, thank you so much for that. Right, guys, let's turn our attention to a bit of news from the club today. We know that's come out on a statement that Spurs have confirmed Brian Carey has left his position as head of recruitment at the club. So quite a senior role. He actually, left by what we understand mutual consent. There's been obviously several key changes being made by Spurs and Fabio Paratici in the build-up for what seems to be a very busy summer. Jay, the talk is that Paratici, Spurs are on the lookout for somebody to assist him ahead of the summer. So already Spurs laying some groundwork.
Yeah, I mean, look, we obviously kind of wanted to change our approach anyway by getting in a sporting director and Fabio Paratici. I think that was quite a good sign that, we obviously wanted to kind of go in that direction. But yeah, I mean, I can't have to admit, I can't speak too much about this guy. I don't know too much about him. But yeah, it just shows that obviously for Paratici, he's obviously trying to work a certain way. And maybe these people, kind of don't see in line with what Paratici is trying to do in terms of maybe bringing in new players and kind of the recruitment side. So, no, I think it's going to be interesting. And then, of course, with whoever Paratici brings in as his number two will also be interesting. Again, we saw, Steve Hitchen, I think, leave a couple of months ago. So obviously there's, real changes in terms of the recruitment that we're doing. I mean, you have to say, recently our recruitment has been pretty poor. Obviously, January aside, maybe changes were needed and maybe this is a good thing. So, no, I'm interested to kind of see how we're going to operate in the transfer window now. And, yeah, obviously, as I said, I can't speak too much about this guy and kind of the role that he plays, but no, it'll be interesting to see how recruitment goes from here on now.
Rob, you got an opinion on it for you? I mean, listen, the guy's been there for 6 years. A guy that's been there for quite a long time. So for Spurs and obviously for him to make that decision, that obviously he's no longer required in terms of surplus requirements. You just feel that already Paratici might be getting some status there and really putting the wheels in motion for a busy summer. Fingers crossed. Yeah,
I think so. There was that report, wasn't there? I can't remember. It was a couple of months ago. Where it was like Paratici's got in and he said we need to overhaul the whole system. So I guess it kind of makes sense. People are probably going to make way. I was thinking I don't remember signing wise how far back 6 years go, but I mean, absolutely no offense to this man, who I'm sure is a lovely guy, but I don't think it's been the greatest 6 years of recruitment at Spurs. So I don't think it, I'm not sure it'd be a job he'd be leaving on his CV. I think that'd be one of those where you sort of be like, oh, now I'll just pretend I went on a gap year for 6 years then. But I don't know. I think we've famously got quite bad recruitment, haven't we, recently? So I think definitely we've got to make changes.
No offense to him, over the past 5-6 years it's been bad, but that's not thinking at him personally.
No, exactly. That's it. If you're judging him on results, that they haven't been brilliant. If he was the man who paid 10 million for Jack Clark, then I think we'll be all right.
It's interesting.
I think that was the funny myth of Spurs that we don't spend money, but actually we were just spending it really badly. So if there's a bit of churn on the recruitment side, it's probably quite a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's one we'll keep an eye on, of course, and we'll see if anybody, which you understand, somebody coming alongside Paratici to help him, which can only be a good sign, right? I mean, I think we all know the club needs to invest in several areas. We've said about wing backs, potentially left-sided centre-back. You then look really at midfield again. There's a need for a creator in there. We spoke about, of course, Eriksen on the last show. Maybe again an alternative striker to Kane. And of course, with the 5 substitutions next season, you feel again that there's going to be a real need to have extra players in that squad, quality from the bench that can change it. And unfortunately for Spurs, one player they won't be able to rely on for the next, remaining weeks of the season is Oliver Skipp. His season, unfortunately, is now over. Jay, I mean, listen, Conte all along in his pre-match press conferences, his post-match press conferences, was really hopeful that we would see Skipp again this season. Just how much of that is a blow when you consider the last 2 games and the real lack of invention and creativity Spurs have shown in that midfield?
Yeah, he has definitely been a big loss for us. I mean, I would love to have seen him in there alongside Bentancur. I think that would have been a really great partnership. I think, Højbjerg's done pretty well in certain matches and, he does do a pretty good job in that midfield. But I think if you look at kind of the role that Oliver Skipp's played in that squad and the step up that he's made this season has been really impressive. So I would love to have seen more of Oliver Skipp. But As well, just in terms of his injury, I think it's obviously caused a lot of frustrations, but it just seems to have been an issue where, something, obviously, I think he got an infection during, his surgery. So, it's something that the physios and kind of the medical staff at Spurs maybe can't really control. And I know they obviously get a lot of criticism for that, but I think, it's obviously a very complicated issue that he's had. So it's obviously hugely frustrating that we've lost such a key player. And hopefully he comes back next season and stronger. And I'm looking forward to seeing him next year. I think he's going to be a really key player for Spurs. I mean, I put out a tweet as well about all the managers that kind of really speaking very fondly of him. You see Mourinho saying he could be a future Spurs captain. Pochettino was speaking about him when he was 18, 19 years old and saying what experience he played with. And now Conte as well was a manager who's always spoken very highly of him. So, I think he's going to be a very key player for Spurs for years to come. But to have lost him this year, so I think it's definitely been a big blow for Spurs, because I definitely think, having him in that midfield alongside Bentancur would have been really, really good.
Yeah, agree. I mean, coming over to you, Rob, when you look at Spurs' win percentage, in comparison to with and without, of course, Oliver Skipp, you can see the real difference he does make in that midfield. And I think, again, not wishing to overanalyze the past two games, but you do feel if you had a player of Oliver Skipp's ability, and he's still a young guy, but just signed a 5-year contract, you just feel he's a great option to have to be able to change the game, potentially to start games, and Spurs aren't going to have that option between now and the end of the season. How frustrating is that, Rob?
Yeah, it is frustrating because he's also one of those. Conte always goes on about he has his like players you can trust, doesn't he? And he seems like he's really a player you can trust in the same way. Just for whatever reason, like he just clearly just doesn't fancy like Bergwijn, who I thought it was crazy that he only came. Was it like 80 something minute he came on against Brentford? Yeah. He just obviously for whatever reason. Whereas Skipp really feels like one of those that he'd go, okay, we need to change the game. I'll bring him on early, like. And maybe shift the formation around, and also it just be exciting to see kind of how he plays under Conte, because I don't think we've actually seen him play that much, have we? Like I remember, I think didn't he have COVID? He was one of the later ones getting COVID when we had the breakout, so he didn't come back into the team for a bit longer or something. I can't remember him starting that many games. So it'd just be great to see where he fit into the Conte system. And he'd look like one of our better players under Nuno. So, it'd be great to see him with Antonio Conte teaching in his patterns and stuff. What kind of player? That's the other thing I'm excited to see what kind of player he is, because he's quite good at everything. So it'd be good to see like what kind of player Conte molds him into. Does he do more of a box to box? Is he more of a sitter? Is he like a ball carrier? Because he can kind of do all those things. So it'd be interesting to see, how Conte uses him. But it'd be great to have him now just to mix things up a bit, as you say. I think he started in the reverse fixture against Leicester. Conte went like three in the middle, didn't he? And it was Skipp, Højbjerg, and Bentancur. Yeah. So I don't know if he would have done that again or what his plan would have been.
Hannah, come over to you. We understand, obviously, again, he's undergone the surgery in America. So obviously we wish him, from all of us here, a very speedy return. Again, Robert said there just how effective he can be for Spurs, and by not having him now, there's now going to be a real reliance on, obviously, Bentancur to try and create. Obviously, you then look at what's alongside him. Højbjerg is a bit more of I would say he's a player that is obviously more breaking up play rather than we're relying on him for his ability in terms of taking us forward. Harry Winks, again, I know really does polarise opinion at the moment. So, again, I think Harry probably is of the I think he's of the understanding that probably he needs to move in the summer, because you do feel whenever he gets on the field, he's already got the fans on his back before he even kicks a ball, which is a real shame, because obviously, it just seems to hasn't worked out from here. And I think for all best parties involved, probably Harry needs that move. Is this putting massive pressure now on keeping Bentancur and Højbjerg fit for the end of the between now and the end of the season?
It is, and that was going to be my one point, really. It's a depth of squad, Skippy, because we don't actually really know the kind of player that he will be in this new setup. And with these new signings, we're going to see new people coming in the summer again. So it will just be so interesting to see how he does establish himself, from September new season onwards. But I think it's crucial for that depth of squad, because, as you say, Winks it hasn't worked out, he's likely to move on. So having Skipp, whether he would start in front of Bentancur or Højbjerg, I don't know. He wouldn't for me. And then whether he has a kind of place in that midfield, or whether we want to go and get a kind of more attacking, as we were talking about, kind of Eriksen type flavour. I think there's a question mark there. So for me, I'm really interested to see where he might fit into that. But I think crucial for depth of squad, and yeah, potentially exciting to see him back come August.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just a real shame, to not have a player that ability to call upon. And as we've said there, it's going to add real responsibility. And also, again, it's a concern that, with the players we've got left in midfield now, can they cope? Is there going to be enough invention, ability to change games? Because Spurs, to be fair, although it is now just one game a week, there's real emphasis now in those one game a week to make the difference, make things count. And we can't bring ourselves to say they're all cup finals, because Spurs don't win cup finals. So we have to keep calling them FA Cup fifth round ties, because Spurs seem to do well on the FA Cup fifth round ties rather than cup finals. So we shall wait to see. Talking about cup ties and playoff ties, interesting what's come up this week. And I think I've seen this, that there could be a potential North London derby playoff should Spurs and Arsenal's results match. Now, we know, of course, there's less than a month of the season to go. Jay, listen, there's still lots of different games to play for both Spurs and Arsenal in comparison to, obviously, how those fixtures will meet. But again, we should add this, that should the two sides finish on the same points, I think same goals scored, then it would essentially go to a playoff game and neutral venue. Maybe I'm looking too far ahead here. How do you feel about that?
No, I mean, I think one North London derby is going to be bad enough, but I certainly wouldn't fancy another one. But no, I'm really looking forward to that Arsenal game. I think that it's going to be such a fantastic atmosphere at the stadium as well. I think it has been a pretty difficult season for Spurs, so to kind of have that one really big match where it feels like there is, something really big on the line. And of course it is, I think getting into the top four would just be massive for, potentially Spurs really kicking on under Conte, having that attraction of Champions League football. So I think to have a massive fixture like that's going to be so key for Spurs. I think Spurs fans, we've waited a long time for a fixture where so much is kind of at stake. So I'm personally really looking forward to that game. As I said, I just think the stadium's going to be fantastic that evening. I really want all the fans to kind of really be behind the team, make that place a really horrible place for Arsenal to go. And as I said, I'm really looking forward to that fixture. But no, for me, one North London derby is definitely enough.
Yeah, I must just correct myself there. So this obviously, in order for this to happen, both teams would need to finish on level points, same goal difference, and have an identical head-to-head record. Now, obviously, the combination of those three do seem very unlikely, but, who knows what's going to come in these next 5 games. I mean, Rob, for me, I'll be honest with you personally, I was not looking forward going into this game unless Spurs were 4 or 5 points ahead of Arsenal. I mean, that's looking very, very unlikely now, if I'm being honest with you. So the thought of the two teams going on either level points or Arsenal in front of us really does worry me. Do you have an opinion on that in terms of how you feel with the both teams coming up against each other?
Well, yeah, I did start on sort of like Monday. I was kind of looking at the run-ins and going, okay, well, what do we need to do? And like the Liverpool game's probably a write-off. So the tricky thing with the timing of it is, I think, because we've got Liverpool just before, haven't we? So say we both win our next couple, I think we'd go in 5 points behind, but they then have. I think it's their hardest game left, other than us, is Newcastle on Monday Night Football. Newcastle's last home game of the season.
Yeah.
And Newcastle in 2022 they'd be second in the league or something mad.
Yeah, their form has been quite unbelievable under Eddie Howe.
And that's a hard one. So do you know what? I'm preparing myself for going into the North London derby like behind them. But I couldn't handle 2 of them. I couldn't handle. Can you imagine it in neutral venue as well? And it's like, would it be Wembley?
Oh my God. Yeah.
I think the thing as well is if we do go behind, we could quite easily be a couple points behind. I think they, as much as I think, they're probably going to drop. Each team's going to drop points, and maybe in games that we don't expect to be dropping points. I think in their next games, you should. I think against West Ham, given the circumstances going on at West Ham at the moment with limited players, and then of course they should beat Leeds at home. You'd think on paper they'll win that game, and maybe we don't get anything from Liverpool. The only thing you could say is we go into that Arsenal game, we do win that game, and maybe that is a big psychological boost for Spurs, and maybe we can make up that gap. So. No, it's going to be a really interesting run, and I think there's going to be points dropped for both teams. I think just both teams at the moment are kind of in form where just so unpredictable, and it's going to be a really interesting finish to the season.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want this to happen, but going in as the underdog or a couple of points behind might not necessarily be a bad thing, because we're going to go in up for the fight. Whereas when you go into a game with something to lose, knowing Spurs. So
it's funny, Hannah, because we certainly can't control it when it's in our own hands, can we? By the looks of it.
But neither can they, though.
But neither can they.
Because they were miles ahead, and then we caught them up, and then as soon as we got in front, we then, Spurs it up, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, I know many people commented on this West Ham game the weekend for Arsenal. I can only see an Arsenal win there. I think West Ham have got their mind fully focused on that Europa League, and maybe rightly so for them. Of course, it's to get to a final will be huge for that club. But I mean, at the same time, West Ham, I think they're very limited on centre-back options as well.
No centre-backs, I think, now, because they played 3 centre-backs on the weekend, and 2 of them were wing-backs, and of course, Dawson got sent off, didn't he? So, I mean, they've certainly had a bit of luck, I think, Arsenal.
Out of interest, Hannah, to stick with you, Harry Kane has come out and said this week that Spurs need to win their remaining 5 games in order to finish in the Champions League. That means going to Anfield and win. I mean, I can already hear the laughter track in the background. I mean, we're seeing the way Liverpool are playing right now. I mean, although it sounds crazy and people are going to laugh at me, I do fancy Spurs for some bizarre reason to get something there. The weird thing about Liverpool is we always seem to play well there, and we never get a result. The last few years, Spurs have been very unlucky to not get results there. But, under Conte, I've got to be honest with you, the one thing about Conte, what I will say is, unlike any other manager, I do go into every game believing Spurs can win it. And I haven't really done that under, maybe since Pochettino, when Spurs were in their peak Poch prime where they were getting results. Conte definitely makes me believe that we can get a result anywhere. But when you look at Spurs, where they've got to come, obviously Saturday, 7th of May, Liverpool, 12th of May, Arsenal, Burnley on the Sunday the 12th, Sunday, May the 15th, but a 12 o'clock kickoff. Then Norwich, the last game of the season. I mean, can you see Spurs winning all remaining 5 games?
Unlikely, but I 100% agree with you on Liverpool. I think we, out of all of their fixtures as well, are the team most likely to take points off them. It's always a spicy game. It's always exciting. There's always something, a penalty, a card, that happens. So I think, we've got a chance. And also, I mean, we're losing against Brighton, but we've taken 6 points off Man City this season. So,
Sanity,
I think we just can't predict it, as Rob was saying. It's unpredictable. I was slightly disappointed. I think Chelsea hate us so much. They kind of let Arsenal win, didn't they?
Totally agree. Yeah, I must say that week, I mean, this is the one thing. I know people, Arsenal fans, some of them are getting absolutely carried by that week, but they've played a Chelsea side that have effectively, for me, kind of thrown the game by the selection they put out. Then they played one of the worst Manchester United sides in the last 20 years. And I'm really not exaggerating, Jay. So when many are making it out to be a wonderful week for Arsenal, I thought I've been massively lucky the way those fixtures have fallen, because if Chelsea were in need of actually getting a result and having to win that game in order to either stay in a title race or qualify for the Champions League, there's no way they would have rolled over the way they did for that game. Do you agree, those 2 fixtures?
It's bizarre. I mean, to be honest, it does sound like we are a bit salty, but I mean, honestly, you saw that Chelsea performance. It was just
horrendous.
Truly shocking. I mean, to perform like that at home was really bizarre. And to be honest with you, I was kind of expecting it coming into the match. I saw the team lineups and I was like, I know exactly what's going on here. I can just see 3 points coming from a mile off. And I mean, you saw the Manchester United performance as well. Was truly shocking. Of course, they missed the penalty at for potentially 2-2 as well. So, they have had a lot of luck, but the concern maybe is that they've got that confidence now. Regardless of how
2 massive results for them.
There is there is still 2 big results. I think they'll supporters and the team will look at it as we've just beaten Chelsea away and we've just beaten Manchester United. So there could very much be the case that they have got some confidence now. But I think they'll come up against sides who. I think Leeds is going to be a really tricky game for them. I think that's a side who have really been pulled back into that relegation battle, and I just think that they're just they've got so much to fight for, and maybe a more stable team. I think Manchester United, although on paper they've got better players, I just think they're so unstable at the moment. I think the same with Chelsea, of course. I think their last 2 home matches were the big defeat against Real Madrid and the big defeat against Brentford as well. So going into that match, they were 2 teams, I think, that were going into those games against Arsenal are pretty unstable. And I think they've definitely got some tricky games coming up as well. I can't remember who said it earlier about the Newcastle game. I think it was Rob.
I think that's the one game that we just feel if there's a chance for a team to take points off them, Newcastle, St James's Park. It'd be
under the lights as well. I think that's going to be a really, really tough game for them. So, and of course, but we would have played that weekend, wouldn't we? We played Burnley on the Sunday. So, well, again, I've got to say I'm terrified for that one, Burnley at 12 o'clock. But I think it's going to be really interesting. I think Spurs and Arsenal are going to drop points in matches where maybe they're not expected to do so, and I think it's going to be so unpredictable. And although it looks like it's in Arsenal's hands, there's going to be so many twists and turns. We've seen how quickly it can change in a week and a half. I mean, as I said, a week and a half ago, I think it was all Spurs, and Arsenal were in a really difficult place. So it's gonna be so many changes, I think, in the next couple of weeks.
And I must add just a caveat, is I know there's not all Spurs supporters watching this, as we can see from some of the comments coming through. I can't get away from the fact that Spurs, there's no excuses from our perspective. We've dropped points against Brentford, who, to be fair to Brentford, they're on a good run. But Brighton, although they beat Arsenal, I don't think Spurs can have any complaints, because they're 2 games that, listen, if Spurs want to be playing Champions League football, you have to win those kind of games. You really, really do. So, I mean, just find this out. I'm going to go to Hannah I'll go to Hannah first, then I'll go back to Rob. Hannah, for you, do you still believe Spurs can finish in that top 4 based on the fixtures that are remaining?
Oh, yeah, you've got to believe. You've got to have the hope. I think it's all to play for. As we said, Arsenal are looking unpredictable as well. It's a Spurs-Arsenal race to that 4th spot now, so we got to go for it, haven't we? It's mad, isn't it, that the TV gods have set us up in this way, though. Because that game is going to be so tense.
Oh my god, that game! I agree.
Honestly,
it does feel like it's going to come down to that.
Like that. It does honestly feel like almost like a cup final, or like it really does, because there is so much to play for. And as I said, I think Spurs, the last couple of years for us have been really difficult. Of course, we did start really well last year under Mourinho, but that obviously faded off. But I just think Spurs, we've been so starved at that massive occasion. I think that game really will feel like kind of a cup final almost. And I just think the atmosphere is just going to be unbelievable. I think there'll certainly be some nerves as well from both sets of supporters as well.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would say is that I think whoever does get that top 4 finish, I'm not sure if you agree that. I think that is the opportunity to really then build. For Arsenal, you look at them, young manager Arteta, they know they need to be strengthening. They'll look to, again, push on in the summer. Again, I know fans are not fully behind him as to whether they believe he's the right man. But for Spurs, again, it's an opportunity if they get top 4 to really consolidate, give Conte what he needs, what he wants. Because I've said it before with Conte. Conte is not coming to Tottenham to just finish in the top 4. Conte wants to win a league. This is the difference between the mentality that Spurs have had in the past with managers. And this is what worries me a little bit, because Conte isn't coming to Tottenham to just have the top 4. He wants to win a league. And I think this is why Champions League is so pivotal to this, because he then can attract the kind of players that can help Spurs get there. Do you agree that this is really a defining period for the club, these next 5 games?
Oh yeah, massively. Well, I think obviously just monetarily, it's how you could just put in probably an extra 50 million into the transfer budget straight away in the summer. And then the thing as well, which I just keep noticing on stuff like Daily Hotspur, is Arsenal and Tottenham get linked to the same targets. It's always Arsenal and Tottenham are chasing the same player every single time. And you just think that's if that's what it's going to come down to, you think in the summer, whoever it is then gets the Champions League is going to have the pick of those, 5 or 6 targets that we're supposedly both looking at. And that could kind of, and then also I do just think it's the mentality of the next season, isn't it? Where it's like, Europa League, the group stage really feels like a chore at times, doesn't it? Where you'll be like Thursday night, we're going off to Sparta Prague or somewhere like that, and it's like the stag do competition where you've been on a stag do in the places that it's been. But and it's Thursday night, and then all your games get moved to Sundays. And it just feels like a slog, and then it doesn't get exciting until about the quarterfinals. We go, we could a bit like West Ham, where you'd be like, we could maybe win this. Whereas Champions League, like those midweek group stages, Champions League in the new stadiums, been away for 3 years now. The first time one came around, it'd be massive, as opposed to Europa League would feel a bit like, here we go again. We're off to Slovenia, right? Okay, let's go and play Slovenia. Slovenia's league champions. But I think it'd be huge. Just the mentality, everything will be massive.
Yeah, totally agree. What we will do is we will go for our final break of the show for our listeners and audio. Taking that break, you're going to hear from an old friend, Jake Watson, of course, former Love Sport, joins us as he gives us his view ahead of Leicester to come. And we're also joined by Tom from Leicester City Fan TV on audio, who gives you their thoughts ahead of the game against Leicester to come. That's what we're turning our attention to next, guys, in this quick 5 preview ahead of it. Jay, let's start with you. I mean, Leicester, they're in this situation where they've got very little to play for domestically. They find themselves 10th, 10 points off a European place, and that's a European Conference League place, I must add, and 16 points behind Spurs. Leicester's tail off this season has been quite remarkable. I mean, they come off the back of a goalless draw against Aston Villa. What should we be expecting in this game, Jay? Is this an opportunity for Spurs to play the style of football they would like to against a side that hopefully will allow them to do so?
Yeah, I think it will be kind of more of an open game. I think Leicester are a side that will look to attack, so maybe you might see a bit more joy. And I think they might be slightly less resistant as well because they've got a bigger game to worry about. I think they'll be all guns blazing for that Conference League semi-final match, and I think that's where their focus will be. So maybe it'll be a frustrating start, and they'll try to keep us out, but I think, maybe coming into the second half, I kind of feel as though it might be kind of like the similar case, the way the Newcastle game went, in terms of maybe they kind of tail off towards the end a little bit. But no, I think that this has got to be a game that Spurs have to win, especially you consider the circumstances that Leicester have around with the Conference League. So, yes, it has to be 3 points. And you just hope now that Conte's realised, that Brighton game wasn't a one-off, because we followed up with an equally poor performance against Brentford, and hopefully he makes the necessary changes. I mean, one player I think, or one certainly area of the team I do think we need to change up is the right wing back. Unfortunately, Emerson Royal, I mean, it was just unfortunately for him, it was a really poor performance, and I just don't think he's a player that can continue in the team at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of gets around that situation in terms of maybe finding a new right wing back, or maybe being a bit creative, or whether he looks to change the formation we're playing. I think as well, we've been loved to have gone to a 3-5-2. Of course, that's something that has brought success. And I think, Rob, you mentioned it earlier as well. We played a 3-5-2 against Leicester in the reverse fixture, and it worked really well. But I mean, we just don't seem to have the options to do that at the moment. So I feel like we do need changes, but it's also difficult to see how we're going to make those changes, because our squad at the moment, and with injuries and obviously lack of options in general, it's kind of difficult to see how it changes. But I said it's got to be 3 points, of course, with given that Leicester are going to be focused on that Conference League game.
I mean, coming over to you, Hannah, Leicester, they've drawn their last 2 games, but also have drawn 3 out of the previous 5. Do you think Spurs will be tempted to almost change that system slightly? There's been, we've only been speaking here, maybe looking at potentially bringing in somebody like Bergwijn in, to play him and deploy him as a wing back. And again, I know these options, Kulusevski maybe dropping in back, then you're losing those as a forward. The only thing I would say again is that I would imagine Conte by now has probably tried this in training. I can't believe he's not tried these things out in training and must feel it doesn't work. Otherwise, surely would have seen it by now, right?
Yeah, also, we've got to remember that team that showed up at Leicester in January. Obviously, we won, but it was right to the wire. But that was quite a different team. So I just looking at the lineup now, we had Skippy, Winks, Tanganga, Sanchez playing. So actually, the setup that we've got now is quite a different setup for this Leicester squad. And as others have said, they're going to be tired from tomorrow's game. And yeah, I think it's in our hands. I think it's all to play for. I can't see Conte changing it, frankly. I think he hasn't really so far.
No.
Why would he start now? Particularly for that point that I just made.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, again, we must just caveat that and add Leicester, of course. They have a crucial semi-final that they're obviously in the midst of. So whether hopefully that's on their mind, again, Vardy is back for them. So it's interesting. We'll come up to you just how Leicester played this one. As we've said, they're 10 points outside the European places. So in terms of Premier League status, they're not going to be dragged into a relegation battle, but they're certainly not going to be dragged in either to a European race in the last few remaining games. So it's whether their mind and full emphasis will be on, obviously, other matters like, of course, the Europa Conference League tie and maybe whether they keep an eye off the Premier League. What do you think going into this one, Rob?
I think I agree. I think they'll rotate. He's rotated massively, hasn't he? And the other ones that have been in between the two legs, he's really rotated. So I think they'll just be all on that. And then also you kind of look at, I think I mentioned earlier, didn't I, that the Frank and Potter are good managers for coming up with like a specific game plan against a Conte system, whatever. I don't think Brendan's really like that. I think he's a bit more, he kind of has his own little system. And I mean, I said we'd get top 4 a month ago, and we'd do it quite easily. But we should really be looking at like this. This should be fairly comfortable. You'd like to think. I think Conte won't change the team. I think he'll keep the starting lineup the same, and I think he'll only change it if it gets to like 60 minutes and it's 0-0 or we're down. But I think he's just got to set them up, get out there, and you just need that early goal
or early
and
shot.
Then Leicester come out. Yeah, exactly.
Early shot on target.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what? That's the other thing I'd like to happen. Just from kickoff, someone just absolutely smash it from miles away and be like, "Bam! There's the shot on target. Right, let's go."
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Leicester are probably the perfect team for us to play right now. In that it's not like a Norwich where we kind of almost get inside our own heads and expect to win. It's fairly decent. It'd be a good win, but as you say, on the beach, only focused about the Conference League. I think. And it feels a bit like, just as a fan, you're a bit like, you know what? If we don't win this, then we don't deserve 4th, and we're not ready for it.
I totally agree. Listen, we can't. If we can't beat in the 3 games, Brighton, Brentford, Leicester, we do not deserve Champions League football. And I must say that we really, really don't. Leicester, as I mentioned, Jamie Vardy expect to be back fit. Whether they play him or not is another question. Boubakary Samare, Ryan Bertrand, Wilfred and Ndidi continue to miss out. So there's some key players out there for Leicester. Jay, let's come over to you to start the prediction. Jay, will Spurs get back to winning ways and actually have a shot on target?
Do you know what? I think Rob made a very interesting point there about how maybe certain managers will set up for other teams. And I think he's very much right there with Brendan Rodgers. I think he will play a particular way and he'll kind of stick to his guns. I think with Brentford and Brighton, they are 2 tactically very good sides. And they'll be able to counter Spurs. And we saw that in both those games. Brighton completely nullified our attack and Brentford did exactly the same. I think with Leicester, it will be a slightly different match in terms of, they'll play their way of football. So I think that will definitely suit us. And again, I just think that their involvement in the Europa Conference League semi-finals, either side of that match, is going to be very big as well. So I do kind of fancy Spurs to get back on to winning ways for this one. I'm going to go for 3-1, but look, you have to be getting 3 points. Not just to keep pace with Arsenal, of course, but I just think because of the circumstances of this game surrounding Leicester, no excuses for this one. I think 3 points absolutely.
Fantastic, Hannah. Let's come around to you. You've been a blinding debut. Been a great debut, Hannah. What are we going for?
Well played. I was going to go 3-1 as well.
Was you? Okay.
Yeah, I was. 3-1? I was. Sorry, I just copied you. But I think it will be. I think Sonny will get 1, and I'll go 2 for Kane.
There you go. Kane back on the scoring sheet. Love it, Rob. Well, I'm gonna go for 2-1, and I'm gonna be there. So I'm really looking forward to it. Rob, are you gonna make it a full house?
I'm going 2-0. I'm gonna go 2-0. I think. Do you know what? I'd just like a straightforward win. Wouldn't that be nice? Just a straightforward one. Not even like the Villa one where it was like the first half we were getting hammered. It's like just a straightforward win would be great. 2-0.
Yeah, and wouldn't that be great? Like I say, I think we need to get back to winning ways, especially again. That will bring it down to 4 remaining games for Spurs, where building up to that Arsenal game as we discussed is going to be absolutely huge. Well, guys, thank you so much. Great show as always. Lovely having you on. Jay, we've got to keep our eyes pulsed. Where can we find all your content coming up?
Yeah, I mean, look, as you can see, Daily Hotspur on Twitter there, and then on Twitch as well. I've been doing live streams before the games, kind of looking ahead to the team news and reacting to that. I haven't been able to do it as kind of consistent as I wanted because obviously I'm going to the home matches as well. So kind of just keep an eye on Twitter in terms of when I'll be doing that. But obviously, when the transfer window comes out, I'm sure there'll be lots of
notification bells on.
Yeah, hopefully.
And hopefully a very busy summer in store for Jamie from the Daily Hotspur. Fingers crossed. Jay, lovely to have you on as always. Like I say, looking forward to having Jamie back on. I've gone through consistent in the summer. Rob, lovely to have you on. Where can people hear about your news, views on Spurs? Where can we find?
Oh yeah, if you just follow me on Twitter or Insta at Radio Rob Howard. That'll do it. I would like to talk about it more on Capital, but they sort of want more Harry Styles news as opposed to.
I can't believe that.
Shall we play Sessegnon at right wing back?
How dare they even let you mention
Spurs?
The cheek of it. I mean, do you know what I mean? Oh, dear. Lovely having you on, Rob, again. Thank you so much. And Hannah,
thank you for having me.
Absolutely fine. Lovely having you on. And Hannah, lovely to have you on for your debut. Where can everybody find your views and thoughts on Spurs?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter, Hannah_Barlow 44. Talking about Spurs, a bit about politics, a lot about my pets. It's all great content. But yeah, thanks for having me, Ricky. I've loved it.
Pleasure. Lovely having you on. Well,
Take
guys,
care.
You too, from Jamie, from Rob, from Hannah, myself, guys, keep safe, keep well. Fingers crossed Spurs are back to winning ways. We're back on Sunday for post-match reaction as always. And fingers crossed, come on you Spurs.